you're in a constant cycle of fighting, constantly arguing, probably blowing up and shutting down, treating each other like ships passing in the night, and you want to know how best to get out of this dance, this cycle of things, this damaging interaction between you and your spouse, then you're in the right place. And today I want to speak to you briefly about the different types of selves, roles, or parts of yourself and of your spouse's self that if you get to know them, you will get a full-blown understanding of what is transpiring, when such things are transpiring, and how to go about probably navigating them in a totally different way where you can connect rather than have conflict. I'm Hilton Samuel. I am a conflict to connection expert, and I help couples to avoid the deadly, constant, recurring fights that they have. I help them actually to build long-lasting connection. And if that's something that you want, listen to this entire video. Now, for starters, there is a guy called David Baer that I listen to, his podcasts and his YouTube videos. And he has a concept of the two states of being, according to Baer, is what he calls a primal state, where fear and old patterns keep you trapped in survival mode, reacting to life challenges with anxiety and limitation. And this is a place where every problem feels like a setback, a progress, and progress seems very elusive. But there is another way. There is a state that he calls the powerful state. You are aligned with your highest potential, creativity flows, inspiration drives your actions, and you face life's challenges with a sense of possibility. And now, while this is good, I want to use this analogy to talk to you about your different part of your being and the different state that you are in. And for that, I call it the HSW. 3 selves of connection, a roadmap to emotional security. The first self is what is known as is the healthy self, right? This is where you're in full control of your state, you feeling energetic, you're resilient, you're capable, you're calm, you're curious, you're empathetic, approach things from a clear cognitive point of view. And when you're in this state, you can listen well to your partner, you can see where he or she is coming from, you can empathize with his or her problems, you can love them the way they want to be loved, and even when they're fussy. You think of it like a mom. When a mom is fully in control, she is refreshed, she has eaten, and she feels calm and cool, the little annoyances of her children, even when they throw a little bit of a tantrum, doesn't faze her. So she is in what we would call the healthy state. Similarly, when you are in a healthy state, your connection with your partner is solid. And even when there is a little bit of a hiccup, a lover's tiff, a little bit of a fight, you're able to work it out and come back well connected. Remember that relationship is all about connection. Now, there is another state which we call the survival state or the survival self. Now, this is when you're very reactive. You're constant, you give as much as you get. If they say something that upsets you, you have a go again at them. If they hit you below the belt, you hit them above the belt. If they embarrass you, you embarrass them back again. They attack you, you defend. You attack them, they defend. And there is a back and forth great fight that sometimes escalates to where you blow up or blow off, or someone totally shuts down and walk out the room. And this survival state, sometimes I give the analogy that if you're in a building and the fire alarm goes off, there's a lot of smoke, you panic. If you don't panic, the first thing that you're wanting to do is to get to a safe place. If you're in the center of the road or at the side of the road and you see a car coming down, the road zigzagging, full speed, and perhaps coming towards you, you will become very highly alert. Your mind will become peaked, and you will be in the fight or flight mode. So that is what we call the survival self. The wounded self, you can get wounds based on the fights that you're in the survival. So it's almost like when you're in a battle, in the heat of the battle, you're in survival mode. But when you are wounded, you're bruised, you're broken, and sometimes they haul you off the battlefield so that they can give you they could administer and treat your wounds, your gunshots, or any other wound that you sustain. If you're in a car accident, they take you to the emergency room. While you're in the car and the car is going to be you will be in a survival state. After the accident, you will be damaged. And similarly, in a relationship, sometimes when we argue, we say things that we shouldn't say, and sometimes we mean what we say, but they are deeply hurtful and they cause untold grief and hurt and pain to the soul or to the heart. And this wounded self is sometimes not actually seen, not clearly seen, because it happens in the heart, it happens in the spirit, it happens in the soul. And your spouse may not even be aware how his or her language impacted and ruptured and stamped and stabbed your soul, how it cut up. I had a friend who would say, "Oh, you cut my liver up piece by piece and leave me to die." So these blows, these hurts, these painful assaults are felt and not usually seen. There is another way that you could get. Some people have gotten wounds from childhood, where their parents or their caregiver have been very cruel to them. They've gone through abuse. They are constantly insulted or shouted at or treated in an unfair way. Sometimes they may even have been abandoned. They have been neglected. And all of these create wounds. And these wounds are carried with us straight into adulthood, through adolescence and adulthood. And because people are not aware of them, and sometimes you're not even aware of them until they're triggered. It's almost like what one guy called sunburns or sun blisters. Some people go away to vacation in the tropics, they lie in the sun, and the sun, unfortunately, they don't feel it at the time, burn them. And sometimes they could get blisters on their back. And when they get home or get back from a holiday, now, of course, they're wearing clothes. You can't see the blisters or the burn or the bruise. And if you give them a great hug, a bear hug, and squeeze their back, that would be especially painful to the blisters that they have on the back. So these are what we would call emotional sunburns. The wounded person, you can't see the wounds. And sometimes you say and do things that will trigger the wound, that will activate the pain, and they respond in ways that shock you. You say a simple thing, they overreact. You said something that you think shouldn't really cause any harm, but yet the reaction that you get from your spouse is out of proportion to the thing that you think that you've done or not done. But that's because they're wounded and their wounds have been triggered. And that pain, the inflammation, is almost like picking off a scab from a wound that isn't totally healed. The scab is there. It looks as if it's healed, but below that is still a deep wound. A deep wound. And so these are the three different types of selves or state that we are in. And if you become aware of what part is showing up as you engage in and interacting with each other, you could, rather than reacting to the behavior, overlook the behavior. Look beyond the behavior, as I sometimes say. Like a parent, when a child throws a tantrum and they scream angry words, "I hate you." I've seen children telling their mother that they hate them. The mother doesn't engage at that level because the mother understands that the child is in a reactive state, or they have been, wounded or hurt or traumatized in some way. And that's the way children react and respond, because they're not totally in control of their emotions. They haven't come to the point of regulating their emotions properly yet. And so too, we need to understand that there is perhaps a child within us or within your spouse. And sometimes we trigger wounds, or our spouses say something or do something that literally trigger wounds. So we need to be really very, very careful. So what we would need, what are some of the things we would need? We need nervous system regulation. Humans mirror each other. Staying calm sends humans mirror each other. Staying calm sends subconscious signals that diffuses your partner's survival mode. There's a section or part in the brain that has what is known as mirror neurons. So if they have a go at you and you have a go at them, then of course both of your mirror neurons are mirroring each other and firing shots, and it only escalates. But if they have a go at you, you recognize that they're either in their survival mode or their wounds are triggered, and you remain cool as cucumber. You don't give tit for tat, butter for fat. You just simply regulate your emotions, even when you're feeling a little bit disturbed. That is likely to calm the situation down. And then the other thing that you need to do is to be a compassionate detective. I like to use the analogy of parents, because mothers, when their children are going crazy, when they're crying, when they're having tantrums, when they're getting really very irritable, the mother looks beyond the immediate behavior and try to figure out what is bothering them. Are they in pain? Are they hungry? Probably they didn't get their afternoon rest, and that is, triggering them. So the mother looks to understand what the behavior is. Behind every action, behind every behavior is a thought or a feeling. Behind the thought or feeling is a need. So we look beyond the behavior and try to find the need. So when the partner lashes out, you can ask, what are you afraid of now? Is there something that I did that upset you? What can I do to help you? And then we disengage to reconnect. Never negotiate with the survival self. When you're in a burning building, that's not the time to sit down and map out a plan of how to get to safety. You get to safety first. When you're in the heat of a battle with your spouse, when you are really having a slug, you're slugging it out with each other, that's not the time for you to come up with best solutions, although you should at some point in time, because their prefrontal cortex has been shut down. They're not thinking. That part of their brain that is logical isn't there anymore. It is the limbic system that has taken over, and they're firing on primitive reactions and responses. Okay, that's it. I hope that helps. If you need some support and help and you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to use the link in the description, and I'll be delighted to help you to navigate the conflicts that you have, so that you go from conflict to the connection that you probably think that you have lost.